Hi Lisa, thanks for opting into the video critique. I'm just making sure I have these all at the same size. Okay. Um, I noticed you uploaded 4 different files. When you do upload your final one, make sure they're also all on the same page so I don't have to like flip back and forth. Um, and we can see how they look as a cohesive set. Okay. So I think you have a good a good start on a few elements. There's some things I like a lot. I like the colors. I like how you didn't go really, really red. You kind of went with a little bit of a pinky red, and this yellow is almost like a tiny bit chartreuse. So these colors I really like. They feel a little bit more contemporary than just a pure, super saturated red and green. So that color scheme I like a lot. I like your tree probably the most. It has a few things working to its advantage. Okay. I see no thin strokes on this design except for these tiny little white ones, and I'm okay with those. I think they would even look a little bit better if you could make them a tiny bit thicker and maybe a little bit less long. Um, because then they can kind of resemble a little bit more of a glint on a ball as opposed to a total line. And then perhaps you could make this inner shape a little bit bigger as well. Okay, just because we want to be really careful with our small shapes so they don't get lost when we scale down our icons. Okay, so picture your icon this size on your phone. Now, if you're losing anything, that is something to be aware of because we want to make sure they look really good when they're large and they look equally good when they're small. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about that in regard to maybe this design. Um, I'm not sure if it's intentional that these stripes get smaller. I'm guessing it is, um, but I don't think it's drastic enough that it really looks like a choice. So that might be something to think about. I don't love how thin these lines are. I would either recommend getting rid of them or making them bigger or thicker. Um, and try if you can to work a little bit on having these line up. They feel like it definitely looks like a black shape on top of this rectangular shape you have there in the background. Just try to work on having them be a little bit more seamless in how the lines go together. Okay. Um, I like this yellow. This actually looks good on these balls with this length. I think on the Christmas tree, they're longer in proportion to the ball size. Okay, so see how these are small and a little bit thicker? This would look nice to have it like this on the Christmas tree. Um, you do have a thick stroke here, which is generally good. I just don't know if proportionally it feels like this is a little bit too large maybe for this. So maybe look at a stocking and um, see if the actual overlap is this dramatic for the red in the background. Okay, so let's go ahead and check that out. I wonder if we could find something. Okay, so see how these are a little bit more proportional, that top part to the bottom part, and the top part is a little bit thinner. It's not quite so huge. Here's a little bit more like what you're doing maybe. Okay. Um, So just look for some examples of these. You might find something really cute. Like see how this is a little bit thinner, but then that freed up some room to like do this cute kind of angular shape. So maybe one thing as I'm looking at these, maybe in a way some simplification could help this Christmas stocking. I really like the balls, so I'd probably keep those. Could you make those a little bit bigger and maybe get rid of something else that's going on in this stocking and then focus on really cleaning up that shape so you have some nice smooth lines in there. I think that would probably be helpful. Even these, see how these are busy, but these shapes are actually quite big. The circles are pretty big. So that's kind of the direction I would say to head for the stocking. Now your snowman, I have some things I really like about him. His hat's awesome. His smiley face, scarf, buttons, great. Now the outer shape here, this is much too thin. Okay, so you can still tell it's a snowman, but we want to keep the stroke size always the same for our thinnest. So say let's say this is as thin as we want to go on a stroke. Okay, so this outer edge really needs to get thicker. It also might look good to have, instead of have this line go all the way down, maybe on the bottom he's just kind of an oval and an oval and not has this circle go around right there. But he's off to a really good start. I do like what you've done with the hat here, adding this dimension with this kind of inverted U shape, or not inverted, but this U shape. So maybe instead of doing the patches, maybe you do something like that on the corner of your stocking. Could you add in that on the bottom of your tree stump? Okay, so adding a little bit of this dimension to your shapes could really take them to the next level. And you've started that with your snowman hat. And I think if you continue that direction, that might look really nice and help them look more contemporary. Now your snowman eyes, I wanted to zoom in on these. I think this star detail is too intricate and too little. So I think it's going to look better to just keep these as some kind of circle inside them, and don't let the circles get too small either. Okay, and then or do the exact same thing you did on your candy cane. I think these eyes are really cute. I love how you've done the white triangle. Okay, so something like that. I do think some of these lines are still too thin. So maybe make those a little bit thicker as well. Let's see. Let's try candy cane. Candy cane. These look cool because they have a little bit of a drop shadow in the background. And you can't actually do that drop shadow effect, but you could do a gray shape along the outer parts, and that would really help kind of make all these feel cohesive. Some kind of cool shadow in the background that's actually a shape. But let's keep on looking at candy cane, see how thick this stroke is. And I feel like maybe I'm trying to see if you do have a pattern. Up here definitely looks a little bit more like a pattern, but they're not spaced correctly. And these ones, see how these are more horizontal and these are more angular. That's something with icon sets, is your lines really need to match when you're getting into angles, when you're getting into thicknesses. You want to make sure they're very cohesive. So if in order to do that well, you need to do less lines, then do that. But make sure they're all coming in at the same angles. Make sure they're all the same width apart. Okay, even I don't love this, but they've done a good job about having these be the same width and the same angle. So that's something you kind of want to hone in on. And here's this neat thing. They just made this circle of lighter color and put it over that. That looks really cool. Okay, so one thing I think your shapes could benefit from is having some kind of background element like this. See how this navy circle in the background really makes them feel super cohesive. I think that's the next thing you could do to take your icons to the next level, because see how like this white snowman, he's just kind of floating awkwardly. He's not centered in here. He's just placed down on the kind of bottom. So it feels like a picture, but a little bit off center. But we don't want that with the icon. This guy's a little off center too. So make sure this center of your icon is centered within your space. Then around that space, consider putting some kind of element like a gray circle or a rectangle with rounded edges. And since you have a nice color scheme here, you don't necessarily have to go crazy with a color scheme. You could do a neutral gray in the background, or you could, on this one, you could have this kind of maroon, not maroon, but almost fuchsia color in the background. This one could be green in the background. Then you could do fuchsia here, green here. Okay, so you could have two with green, two with fuchsia, or yellow would almost work, except for this guy, your star is going to blend in the background. Yeah, oh, and this one. Okay, so maybe not. But yellow could work for this one and this one really well, and then maybe green and, something. Okay, so play around with that. I think that could help make these feel even more like a unit, which is one of the things See, this maybe I don't love the scalloped edge. It's a little bit too much detail, but see how these instantly all feel cohesive because they have this background element going on. That's really going to help take these to the next level as well. Now, another thing you could do, which is really fun, is you have a circle and then you have your shape breaking over the edge of the circle. So that's something to consider. It's really cute when people do things like that. Okay, so maybe that could work for your snowman. His hat goes over the edge, a little bit of the candy cane goes over the edge, top of the stocking goes over the edge, the star goes over the edge of the circle. All right, so I think I've given you a lot of ideas. Sorry if I've given you too many. Feel free to make some changes, take it to the next level. If you want to email me a second draft later this week, I'll be happy to look at that and say, yes, you totally got it, or yes, you're almost there. Here's one or two extra things you could do. But you're heading in the right direction. Just keep on making sure it feels cohesive, not losing any of your strokes, and working on a few of those fine tuning things like placement of lines, eyes, and small lines. Okay, thanks so much for opting in. Have a good night.